Hello, everyone. Welcome to Beyond Life Paranormal Researchers podcast. I'm your host, Russell Reynolds, and we got an exciting show tonight. We got a very special guest. My guest tonight, she has appeared on the show The Legions of Exorcists. She's also a paranormal investigator since the age of 16 years old. So she's been doing it a lot longer than I have. Um, so without further ado, let's bring on Archbishop Rita Strugala.
Hey
Hey,
there.
welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So, tell my audience a little bit about yourself and how you got started in the paranormal field and how it led to you
Okay.
doing exorcism.
Okay. Well, I started out, I had my very first paranormal experience when I was 5 years old. And it it scared the heck out of me. It wasn't, I mean, by today's standards, some of the stuff you hear, it wasn't that bad, but it scared the heck out of me. I know that. And although it scared me really bad, it also made me want to know how things like that could happen. And I was very young. And basically, what happened was I heard my parents had all gone to bed, and I was just in the room. It was very hot. I lived up in Minnesota at the time, and it was very hot. Didn't have any air conditioning, so I was just laying there, just trying to go to sleep. And I heard footsteps coming down the hall. Wasn't unusual for my parents to peek in and make sure us kids were okay and everything. So I wasn't worried about that. I just expected to see them show up in the doorway, and heard the footsteps come, and they stopped right in the doorway, and there was nothing to see. And I remember to this day, I remember my heart like beating out of my chest. I knew something was really wrong, and I was afraid to move. I didn't say anything, and I was just, and then I kind of started to relax when I didn't hear anything else. And and all of a sudden, this big booming woman's voice, old woman's voice, said, "You kids, stay out of my piggy bank money." And I'm like, I didn't even know what a piggy bank was. Scared the crap out of me. I dove under the covers, and that's where I stayed. And that, what I found out much later in life was that one experience that scared me so badly, it made me actually shut down all my gifts. And so it was a long time. I could feel energy, but I couldn't see it. I didn't hear it really, and that kind of thing for the longest time. But I was so interested. I wanted to know how something could talk that did not have a voice box. And
Right.
that really propelled me. And so I started, I would go to like our library, and I try to find books on ghosts. Way back then, it was either Casper the Friendly Ghost or it was Hans Holzer. So I read both. So, anyways, so that's what really got me to the point where I was still very interested. I wanted to know how that happened. And then later, as things progressed, I always had a knack of getting things on camera. Um, Even though I couldn't see it with my eyes, my camera saw it. And then that absolutely spurred me on more. It's like, how does my camera see this, but I can't? And
Right.
that was a big thing. And but it just kept my interest going. And I've got like 50 years behind me now of paranormal investigating and exorcism. The exorcism part, I wanted nothing to do with. Absolutely nothing. I tried very hard to stay out of the darkness. Um, even when I was paranormal investigating and stuff like that, as I got older and was, if I really felt like a case was demonic, I would go out of my way to try to find someone to help them because I didn't feel qualified to do that. And I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to open myself up to that. And what I didn't know, at the time when I was going through all this stuff was that the more you do this stuff, the more sensitive you get to it
Yep.
and the more they're drawn to you. So, and I know you know that feeling.
Yep. I sure do. All too well.
Yeah. So, it just it, it's just one of those things where it absolutely was my calling. I didn't want it, wanted nothing to do with it, and I made every excuse in the book why I shouldn't do it. And the Lord just kept taking all of those concerns away and going, okay, now what? Now what's your excuse, kind of thing. And I kept thinking to myself, well, I don't want to do something like that if I don't have any clergy on my team. I don't have, I don't have a shaman. I don't have what he put everything in my team. He put two priests and a bishop, exorcist bishop on my team. He brought me a shaman. It was like crap. Now I got to do this. So that's it pretty much fell in my lap. And it was very much, I very much understood that that's what I was supposed to do. So I finally embraced it after about a year and realized I wasn't going to get out of it. So
Right.
that's and I've been doing it ever since. It's been about a decade now.
Oh wow. Yeah. I've been doing this about 31 years now. So.
Yep, it's a long time. And that's another thing. If it ever happens to you where you start getting into more of the demonic stuff,
Mhm.
just know you will never have the pleasure of doing just a good old haunted house again. It won't happen.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we deal with a lot of the demonic stuff and
And it gets to the point where they know where you're going to be. They know they want to take you on.
yep.
So if they know you're going somewhere and you think you're going to a good old haunted house for once, they'll show up. The demonic will.
Oh yeah. They
As
I've learned once you deal with them the first time, they know your name, they know who you are.
Oh yeah. Oh, they definitely do. Yes. And they keep score.
Oh, they sure do. And so, how did you get on the Legions of Exorcists?
That was another thing that just kind of fell in my lap. Back in I think it was the end of 2020. Yeah, I think it was November if I remember right, around Thanksgiving, something like that. I have an account on what is it, Indeed, I think it is. No, LinkedIn, excuse me, LinkedIn. And I very rarely am out there. I very rarely check that. I don't know why. I just don't. And for whatever reason, I kept getting notifications that I had, all these messages, whatever. And I thought, okay, I'm just going to go out there and clean it out so it quits sending me all these notifications. And so I went out there, and one of the notifications was from a production company who had an idea. Well, not an idea, but they were actually doing a show, and they wanted to know if I would take part in it. I've been I've been contacted by so many different producers and stuff like that, and it just never pans out. It just is never what it's purported to be. And so I really wasn't even going to do anything with that message. There have been so many times. Usually, what happens with me is once I get a message like that, I will ask my guides, "Is this something I need to do?" And I heard the word no so many times
Right.
that I just, I got to the point where I didn't even bother to ask. I just, delete. So um, I was telling the other girl that does exorcism with me, I was telling her that I'd gotten, a notification, and she said, well, are you gonna respond to him? And I said, I don't think so. And she said, well, shouldn't you ask your guides? And I'm like, what for? They're just gonna say no.
Right.
And she said, I'm getting that you're supposed to. And unfortunately, she's almost always right. And I'm like, oh no, I'm not. No, I'm not. So I did. I went into meditation, asked my guides, and it was like, yes. And it's like, are you serious? It's like, yes. And I said, why? Why now? And it's like, because it's time. Okay. So I contacted them back and we set up a meeting. Of course, that was when COVID was starting up and all that good stuff. And But we went through like a year of going through talking to different people at the Travel Channel and stuff like that. And then they notified me that I was going to be one of the ones that they wanted on there as a full-time talent kind of thing. And that's how it started. It was just surely by happenstance. I mean, I wasn't planning on doing anything with it, but
Right.
I didn't understand why, because I know my guides. I know them very well by now, and I know that nothing I do is for money. Nothing I do is for my good. It is for the good of somebody else or something else. And so I was trying to figure out, why are they putting me out there like this? And it was funny because when the show came out, the girl that does the exorcisms with me, she called me up and she said that she was watching it with a bunch of friends of hers. And she said, Rita, they hate it. And I'm like, what? She said, they hate it. And she said, they turned it off after 10 minutes. I said, well, my part doesn't even come on until 30 minutes into it. And she said, well, she said they were bored, so they turned it off or whatever. It hurt my feelings. I'm not going to lie, it did. And I said, okay, whatever. So that night, went to the guides and I said, why did y'all put me out there? I said, why did I have to do this? And if it's that bad, why did you make me do this? And all I heard was, you will understand. Well, that could be today, that could be tomorrow, that could be 9 years from now, who knows?
Yeah.
So I didn't think too much more about it. The next day, I started getting all these emails from women just like me who said, how did you break through? I've been trying forever to get into this and men will not let me. The churches will not let us. They will not, And I thought, and that's when it hit me and I went, oh my God. The other thing she had told me back 8 years ago is, you're going to be teaching. Of course I laughed. But yeah, that's how the school started. The School of Exorcism started. And that was the whole reason why I had to do the show. So
Oh, wow. Now with exorcisms, you know how people see it in Hollywood. How does Hollywood decipher, like, the real exorcisms that you guys do compared to what Hollywood makes it up to be?
yeah. Um Hollywood's got a good imagination. I mean, we've had some really, really violent ones. We really have. Uh, they differ though. I mean, just they've got a time schedule. They got to get everything in such a small amount of time. Usually, you're looking at at least a couple months or more before you actually get into an exorcism kind of thing. That should be your last resort. Make sure it's not just oppression or something like that where you just do a deliverance. If it is an actual exorcism, whatever, they still got to get the psychological testing and all that kind of stuff to make sure that you're actually dealing with a spirit and not like just mental illness. Now, that is not to say that we don't exercise people that do have some mental illness problems. You do. Um, Demons see that as a weakness, and they will get in through that way at times. So a lot of times, people that are possessed may have some mental illness problems going on as well. But you have to try to decipher between it and make sure that if you do an exorcism, it is not going to make things worse for them, with the mental illness
Right.
and that. So it can be a fine line to have to walk.
Yeah, we find that a lot in our residential cases with a lot of mental illness and alcohol abuse, drugs,
Yeah, definitely.
a lot of schizophrenic people.
Hmm. Yeah. Now, if it wasn't, and there is a lot of that kind of stuff. I would still say though, if it wasn't for like the spirit boards and stuff like that, I wouldn't have 75% of the cases I have.
Right.
So do you
Yeah.
find that a lot?
Yep, we do find that a lot. I get called quite a bit for spirit boards, and
Yeah.
tarot cards are another one. I got
Hmm.
called for one. Girl was diagnosed schizophrenic and was playing with tarot cards and doing readings for people on TikTok
Oh boy.
and conjured something up in her house.
Yep. Yep.
And her father found the cards. She kept 3 devil cards out of each deck. That was the only 3 she kept.
Mm.
The father threw the rest of them away.
Ay, ay, ay.
And they were from different countries. There was one deck was from China, another one was from Japan, and the other one was from Turkey.
What'd she do? Get them online?
Yep.
Great.
And with something like that for a cleansing, like our religious cleansings here isn't gonna work for something like that that's from a different country because they have a different belief system than what we do.
Yeah. I mean, it was she possessed or
No, she was just battling her schizophrenic disorder pretty bad where she was hearing voices. I mean, we didn't capture nothing on camera in the house.
Mhm.
There was a lot of clutter. Roaches were a big factor
Mm.
in that place as well,
Yeah. Yeah. That could also be a demonic infestation.
and she had, like, 6 little kids in the house
Oof.
too, on top of it, so
Ugh. Why would you want to bring that in your house with your kids? Yeah, it's hard. It really is. A lot of it is just, you know, education. Um, People see the stuff on TV or whatever, and they think it never happened to them, but you'd be surprised.
oh,
I
yeah,
know when I know when we first started, when I first started out way back when, I know at that point they were saying you had like pretty much a 5% chance of actually running into something demonic in your lifetime. And now I would have to say, at least from my experience, I would have to say it's probably closer to 65, 70%. It's
right,
gotten that bad. And I think a lot of that is due to the internet, to television, to movies. It's opened people up to it and they're curious and they want to try it. And so yeah, it's scary. It's scary because it really can take people over and they don't realize it until it's too late.
Bishop Frank M. Gillette said, "2 out of 10 are true cases, but exorcisms fewer. Mental illness is a big part."
Yes, agreed. Agreed. Yeah. Yep. A lot of it is it is, and it can, and the thing is it can really mimic. It can really mimic it. You know, it can really look like it is something bad, but you know, it's a fine line. It's really hard. It would take, you know, hours to explain all the differences and nuances of it, but it's you know, it's definitely a lot of times it's a judgment call, and you got to help them if you can.
Yep, and that's even if you can't help them with the mental illness, you can direct them in, like,
Oh
for
yeah.
us, we direct them in places where other people can help.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And especially, you know, a lot of times it's as simple as they know that they have some mental issues going on and they just don't want to take their medication. And that, you know, that's dangerous too. They need to take it. I mean, if you're not taking the medication and you're acting like you're possessed, I mean, I would think it would be easier for something to come in that way. And, you know, how would you know the difference? You
Right,
yourself, you know, because I mean, it's pretty much hell on earth, you know, inside your mind and the chaos and all that kind of stuff. So, um, you know, people are just. I feel bad for them that there's so much going on nowadays, and there's so much evil out there. Just be careful. Be careful. Try not to open any doors. Try not to, you know, try not to do anything with the occult because that's really a bad way you're going to open that door and you're not going to be able to close it.
yep, and with all this negativity going on right now, it's just feeding it, making it stronger.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I know last month, I mean, October's usually bad anyway. The veil is thinner. For whatever reason, the veil is thinner. And I did so many deliverance prayers last month. I mean, more than I think I ever have. It was, I mean, it was markedly more than usual. So I'm glad it's kind of calmed down right now, but it'll be back. Trust me.
Oh yeah, well, that's like right around this time of the year. We usually kind of slow down a little bit, but
Yeah.
it's been nonstop for us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if we get called in on a demonic case and it's something we can't handle, I usually make a phone call to Sister Farrah Rose Deal down in
Yep.
Springfield.
Yep. Yep.
She's my mentor with the demonic and stuff. And
Yeah. I used to, Kenneth, I was friends with him for quite a while. Yeah. Yeah. It's good to hear her name. I haven't talked to her in quite a while. I need to look her up.
yeah, she's still doing her thing, still working for the diocese office. And
Great. Great.
we had a
That's good.
question for you. Uh, Teresa asked, "What is a deliverance?"
Okay. Deliverance is when somebody is oppressed, not possessed, but oppressed. Oppression happens from outside. It's attack from the air. It comes at you from the outside. It weigh on you. It make you feel like some people feel like they've got bad luck, like they're just, financial things are going wrong. Everything in their life is going wrong. Doesn't matter what they do. They can't get a job. Whatever it is, it all comes at one time, and it oppresses you, and it brings you down, and it wears you down, and it's basically trying to get into you inside. When it is still oppression, when it's still coming at you from the outside, you do a deliverance, which is prayers to the Lord to take it away. And basically the ones that I use, takes away, it cuts any type of curses, or hexes, or satanic, anything that's been thrown your way by somebody else, or any of that. And it actually cuts anything between you and the oppressive entity that is there, and it gets rid of it.
And there was another question. Rachel Roberts asked, "Is the oppression demonic?"
It can be, yeah. Usually they're trying to find a way in.
Teresa said, "Thank you."
You're welcome.
Bishop Frank M. Gillette said, "Possession. I know they go after the most vulnerable children, mental illness, elderly, disabled people."
He's correct. Absolutely correct. Wherever they can find that weakness.
And I know we deal with a lot, especially with like haunted objects.
Oh, yes.
You get a doll that a demonic entity knows that doll is going to be close to somebody. What you're going to want to do? Hold it up to your heart. And
And
that,
God forbid, don't give it to a kid.
yep, it's a good way for it to latch onto you from there because it gets into your heart chakra.
Yeah. Yeah. And you bring it into your house.
Yep.
And I mean, that gives it legal right, because you just brought it in. You willingly brought it in. So, yeah, I don't know why people bring dolls into their houses anyway. So, never liked dolls.
Yeah, we just got rid of a whole bunch of them from a case we did that was terrorizing a blind lady.
Oh, man.
They're
Mm.
they're locked up in the Warren's Cult Museum now.
Yeah, I've sent a few of them to Frank Zaffis, or John, excuse me, John Zaffis.
Yep, John's got a haunted mask we took out of somebody's house.
Oh boy. Last time I talked to him, and now it's been a while, I had sent him, my sister had bought a doll, which she knows I hate. I don't know why she did that, but she bought a doll from a Salvation Army, I think it was, or a Goodwill store, and she brought it back, and it was like, not a Raggedy Ann, but it had like a cloth face, and it had like corn husk for hair. And I remember going by her room one day, and she was cutting the corn husk on it. And I said, "What are you doing? Giving it a haircut?" And she said, "Yeah, yeah, it's just getting so long." And I thought, "Are you nuts?" And so I didn't think much more about it. I went by. A couple of weeks later, she's in there. She's starting to cut again. And I walked in and I said, wait a minute, you just cut that thing up to the what would be the shoulders. What the heck? And she said, I know it just grows so fast. And I said, it shouldn't be growing. and, and so she had put it on her desk in there, and her boyfriend walked in to say something to her, and the thing launched off the desk at him.
Oh, wow.
And it's like time for this thing to go. And so we took it, we put it in a box, and I bound it, and I put, holy water with it, blessed salt, and just made sure it was bound. And I let John Zaffis know that it was going to be on its way to him. He said that was fine. Took it down the next day to the like UPS store thing, and I had so much blessed salt in there. It sounded like sand in the box when you moved it. And they were going like, is there sand going to come out? And I said, no, no problem. No sand. And she takes and she gets it. She weighs it and everything. She goes, okay. And I said, what time do they come and pick it up? And she said, oh, 6:00. And I said, okay. And it was about 3:00 at that time. We just about got out the door, and all the electricity in the whole strip mall went out.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, oh boy. Okay. So we left, and I looked at my sister and I said, I really hope we don't hear about a plane crash tonight. I'm really worried about this thing. And I thought, it's a power outage, they happen. We went back there. Oh gosh, a few hours later, there was some other place in there we had to stop by, and the lights were back on. And just for the heck of it, so I popped into the other place, and I said, did that package get out of here okay? She said, yeah. She says, the weirdest thing. She said, the minute they left, the lights, everything came back on. I went, oh my gosh. So I had John, I told him, I said, look, you really need to bind this thing again when it gets there. And so he did. And I talked to him like 3 weeks after it got there. And I said, have you taken it out yet? He said, nope, haven't taken it out of the box. He said, this is the third time I bound that thing. So
Anybody that can do it, John can. That's for sure.
yeah. Oh yeah. It's like, I don't need that thing. Don't want that thing.
Dana D said she collects dolls, but she always says a protection prayer and the Lord's Prayer.
I would do that. I would put blessed salt around it. I would put it in a case. I'm sorry. I don't like dolls. I just don't.
And another one said Johnny Zaffis is awesome. And LaFave.
Yep. You're right, Ann.
He is. My cousin's awesome. I got to meet him for the first time when he was out here in Missouri at Medicon. That's
Oh,
when I
cool.
brought him that mask.
He's real laid back.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I like him. He's real down to earth.
And he was picking on Andrea Perrin.
Of course. Of course.
Because I guess that night Andrea went outside and put her arms up, started singing Frank Sinatra My Way, and then the whole sky just lit up. And
she's got some of the best energy of anybody I've ever known. She really does.
And I guess John told her one of these days somebody's going to beam her up.
He's probably right.
And there's quite a few of them that met John on here. Dana D's met John. Anne.
Anne gets around. She goes all over the place. She's going to kill me for that.
Yeah, she's as bad as us. We travel too. We don't just stay in Missouri doing investigations. We go out of state.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, Anne said Andrea's facing some bad health issues right now. Yeah, she does need prayer. She's battling some bad health issues. I know about that.
Yeah, yeah. I've heard too. And yep, I definitely pray for her.
Yeah, she's a nice lady. That's the first time I got to meet her, which was at Medicon. My dad and I got to find out that we're related to the Warrens. So
Yeah. I was lucky enough to meet her also at a I think it was at Scarefest in Kentucky, I believe it was back in 2015, I think it was. And she helped me. She didn't know how much she helped me at the time, but it was when I was struggling with this. I did not want to do this. I did not want to be an exorcist. I didn't want to have anything to do with it. And I was lacking the confidence to do it as well, because I never, saw myself going in that direction, never had any intention of going in that direction. And a friend of mine met me there, and we were talking after Scarefest, and I was telling him, I just feel so trapped. I don't want to do this. I don't want to have to lead my team into some place that I don't know if I can keep them safe. That was the biggest thing. And he kept telling me, well, the Lord wouldn't put you in some place that he did not give you all the tools you needed to
Right.
fight it. And he said, you just need some confidence. And it's like, I don't want to do this. And he said, look, you've got all the tools you need. He said, but he said, you just need more time, I guess, to process it. Okay. So the next day we went back, and he wanted me to meet Andrea at the time. And that was on a Saturday. And there was like 18,000 of your closest friends you've never met. And so you couldn't get anywhere near her or her booth or anybody's, really. I mean, it was just wall to wall. And so the next day when we went back on Sunday, it was so much better. There was only like 1,000 people there, and you could literally stand and talk with whomever you wanted to for however long you wanted to. It was no problem. So we were walking through there, and I saw her over there at her display. And the day before, I saw a big poster, but you couldn't even see what was on it because there were so many bodies in front of it. And so for the first time, I could see it said The Conjuring. And I don't watch scary movies. I do not. I don't give them any kind of ammunition to use against me. I don't want them knowing what scares me. So I don't watch those movies. I've heard of it. Obviously, you'd have to be on Mars not to. But I knew of it. I didn't know what exactly it was all about, but I had heard of it. And he said, Rita, I want you to come over here. I want you to meet my friend Andrea. And I said, sure. We go over there, and she's behind the table. I said, Andrea, I want you to meet my friend Rita. She goes, oh, okay. And she gets up and she comes over, and she just kind of takes my hands for a second. And she says, you need to read my book. And I thought, oh, great, a sales pitch. That's what I was thinking. I'm just being honest. And she knew exactly what I was thinking. And she looked at me. She goes, no, you don't understand. You need to read my book. And I went, wait a minute. She's probably right. I probably do. If I'm going to have to, face these demons, I probably do. And so my friend said, Andrea, we'll take a book. Could you go ahead and sign it for her? And she said, oh, yeah. So she went, she sat down and she started writing in the book. And all of a sudden she looks up at me and she says, oh, I have a message for you. And I said, oh, okay. And she just went back to writing. And I thought, okay. And I stood there for, I don't know, a few minutes. And I said, did you want to share the message? She said, oh, I wrote it in your book. And I said, oh, okay. So she gets up and she comes around the side of the table and she hugs me. And I noticed that she was reading my energy. And all of a sudden she said, she just whispered in my ear and she said, you have all the tools. Freaked me out.
Yeah, she's amazing at what she does.
Freaked me out. I'm telling you, I did the one thing that I absolutely hate people do, and I did it. I said, how did you know that? Like, I don't know. I hate that. But that was it. It just took me by such surprise. And I said to her, I said, tell me something. I said, do you see a young man with me? Because I had went to a cemetery, and he'd been with me for a couple of years. After that, he followed me home. He wasn't malicious or anything, but I couldn't understand what it was he needed. And anyway, she started laughing and she says, oh, honey, she said, you have so many people. She said, I can't see the end of the line of all the people you have with you for protection. And and she goes, and there's this sweet little woman right next to you. And I knew that was my grandmother. I knew.
Mm.
And she said, her name's Martha. And I said, yep, that's my grandma. So she's amazing. She really, I will never forget that. She helped me a lot to actually step forward into this.
Yeah. Dana D asked, What is the fee you charge for a deliverance over the telephone? PIA.
Zero. I don't charge anybody for any kind of deliverance, exorcisms, anything like that. Our 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 blessings come from the Lord. We do it to help people. We don't do it to make money. So if you need a prayer, let me know.
Then she said, ha ha ha, she got in your head.
Get out of my head. No, prayers are free.
She said, okay, thank you, Bishop.
You're welcome.
So, with the exorcism, is that true that they bend their bodies backwards in all different directions and you hear the popping and cracking of their bones and stuff?
They can get very contorted. Yes, they can.
I know Ferris told me some stories, but she can't dive into too much because of the diocese.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It can get pretty crazy. I mean, we had one really bad case, very violent case. It took 11 of us to hold that guy down. Um, he literally went into snake mode and started, undulating like a snake and flicking his tongue out. And I'm pretty sure if he could have gotten on the floor, he probably would have slithered around the floor.
Wow.
Yeah.
Would you say that was your worst one, or
Yes. Yes. Yeah. We walked into that house and the guy was screaming in Latin from the bathroom where he had a 6-inch stiletto, or I think that's what you call them. It's a knife. And he was punching it through the door. And he did that 13 times. It was very violent, a lot of blood. If we hadn't had all those people to hold him down, literally, somebody would have gotten very badly hurt.
oh wow. Yeah, we did a pretty bad one. Our first one, we got called into a house, and my dad and we go out before and we interview the client and paperwork and stuff like that. And I was having her filling out one of our question forms, and it was like something was telling her what to write. And then once we got out to the initial investigation, we were walking around the house. The one hotspot question was a closet downstairs with a noose hanging in it.
Oh my goodness.
So I opened that closet door and it was just like a switch just flipped.
Why was there a noose in there?
From the previous owners, they were doing some sketchy stuff in the house and they were playing with a spirit board in the house.
Oh boy.
And this person was just a perfect target with, I'm not going to go too much into it because of the
No,
confidentiality
fine.
of it, but she had some past trauma and ran up the stairs. She was crying. Her daughter says, "I love you, mom." She goes like this, runs out the door. So we're trying to calm her down. One of my members are actually holding her hands, and then upside down cross appears on the side of her neck, and her
Oh
eyes
boy.
back of their head said, "It's mine. I don't want it to leave."
Ugh.
Yeah, that was a rough one. It took about 6 months to get everything back to normal. Now she's good. She goes to church every day on Sundays and
Good.
prayers. We're like family now to her.
Good.
Invites us over
Good.
to dinner, and
I'm
we
glad you were able to help her.
yep, we saved her marriage, her whole family.
Fantastic.
That's why people ask me all the time why I get into this, and it's like that satisfaction of that help know that I helped somebody get their house back and get their
Hmm.
peace back. That's my reward for it. That's why we don't charge to do it either.
No, no. And I don't advocate for anybody that does charge for it. I really question why they're doing it.
Teresa asked, "How does this happen?
How does what happen exactly?
The possession." I'm thinking she means the possession and the demonic and stuff like that, attachments and
Something they've done has given it legal right to come in. It's been invited in. That's a lot of times through sin. Um, a lot of times it's, the spirit boards or something that you've willingly done to let it come in. Um, there's a multitude of ways that you can do that, but once you've done that and they come in, they have legal right to be there. You have to break that legal right in order to get them out.
right? And that's even like spirit boxes too. You have to be very
Yep.
careful with them because that's just
You're
like
communicating. You're opening a door. Any way you're doing that, it's communicating. You put yourself out there. You've told them that you are open to communication with them, and you don't know if it's a good entity or not. So you got
right.
to be really careful about that.
Like when we do Estes and stuff, we protect ourselves before we go under. We do minimum of 15 minutes.
Hmm.
Then we thank them for their time, and then we close it out.
Good. Yeah. Yeah. Be really careful about that.
Bishop Frank said demonic spirits have to be invited, and once in, they're hard to get rid of.
Yes, they are.
They
He's
sure are.
absolutely right. Yep. He's
That
absolutely right.
case, it took 6 months.
Yeah. It can take, years. It can literally take years of, backsliding and, I've had it where it was so bad and you got everything out and everything, and all of a sudden it's almost like they miss that spirit, that they miss that part of them once they're gone, and they can invite them back in. I've had that happen. And it's I've had people say they feel so much better afterwards. I've never felt this good, whatever. And they quit taking all their medications and stuff. And it's like, and that's right on our forms. There is you don't stop taking your medications. You talk to your doctor and that first. I don't care how good you feel, because you can really throw everything off. You need to do what you're supposed to do. And I'm glad they feel so good, but that part of it's usually short lived, and reality comes back in, and
Yep.
you just got to be really careful. And once you've been in that place where you've had a possession, you've got a bullseye on your back. They will come back. They will look for another way to get in.
Mm.
They know they have you marked as weak. And that's just the way it is. You got to be always got to be protecting yourself after that, because they will try very hard to find a way back in.
Rachel asked, I heard that it's not always invites. Is that right?
There are other ways. I mean, I usually it's an invite of some way, even if that person doesn't realize that they invited it in. Um, it's a possibility. Sin works goes a long way towards it too. You got to be really careful. And they see things as weaknesses, like alcoholism is a weakness, drug use is a weakness, using occult things is a weakness. um, so they will try to find any avenue in they can. They will look for your weakness. Now I do know people that have they have gifts. And I know of one lady in particular who fell and she hit her head. I know another one that had a car wreck and hit their head and became a wide open channel. And when you got them coming through you and you haven't learned how to shut it down because you're wide open, yeah, they can take a foothold in there. So people that have gifts and that, yeah, you've got to be careful. You've got to figure out what works for you. And that's another problem is, I can tell you what works for me, but I can't tell you that it will work for you. Everybody's different. You have to find what it is that works for you to shut it down.
Yep.
And if you're not feeling strong, or you're feeling, weak one day, or really tired of that, and you have gifts, shut it off. Don't give them a way to get in because you're so tired. You don't have your defenses where they need to be. Protect yourself at all costs.
Bishop Frank said, "Rita, the devil has our posters hanging in hell."
He sure does. He's been throwing darts at me the I don't know how long.
Yeah,
You're right. You're right, Frank.
sure he does. I'm sure he's got all of ours that deal with it.
Oh, heck yeah. You know he does. He's sent out an army against all of us. Are you kidding? Yep. He's so right. I hope
We
he didn't use my Facebook profile for that.
we got called into one case in Oklahoma where a guy was doing demonic worshiping in his home, and he had two little kids in the house,
Why did they do that?
and he was using a Buddhist sing bowl, and he was doing some stuff with candles and all. And so his mom called us in because of the two little kids. She was concerned. And daughter was playing with tarot cards, and
Nice.
he brought in something in the house. My dad and I got went in because the rest of my team couldn't make it, so we went out there to check it out, and we sitting there watching the cameras, and the one camera just started pulsating in the hallway. So I figured it was static, and it just kept watching. It got worse and worse, and then this big black tall figure appeared
Oh boy.
in the hallway. So I said to my dad, "I'm gonna go back there and check it out. Just keep an eye on it." And got back there, and here's this thing standing at the end of the hallway, comes running at me, drops down to 5 foot, disappears at my legs, and then I ended up with 3 scratches on my arm.
Mm, that was a warning to you.
Yep,
Yeah.
'cause it knew why I was there and what I was doing.
Yep. It wanted you gone.
And the guy, he was working, the father that was doing all the stuff, he wanted us out of there, and his mom told him, "No, they're not leaving. I called them here."
So what happened with them?
He, diverted back to his old ways and tried to kill his girlfriend.
Nice. Real nice.
Jumped out of a moving vehicle doing about 70
Oh
because
my
he was
gosh.
trying to touch
Did
the
she
light
did
backwards.
she live?
Yeah, she lived, banged up pretty bad, scraped up.
Yeah.
She lived,
Wow.
and the guy wouldn't do a cleansing. He's like, "I don't believe in your holy water," and
He couldn't have done it anyway. It wouldn't have let him.
no, and it wouldn't. We did the rest of the family, but it wouldn't him.
Yeah. Yeah.
We had another case where a guy said he had 3 demons attached to him. He said he couldn't do our holy water, and so we did a little psychological thing on him and said, "Oh, this is just sage spray. It has no holy water in it." So I sprayed him down with it, and it didn't even affect him.
Yeah.
And he was
Yeah.
self-inflicting wounds on him. He was scratching himself, carving upside down crosses in his arms, and
Yeah. He's probably got some mental problems too. Yeah.
and
That's
it was a crazy case. And the one that the guy was doing the demonic worshiping was actually on the Trail of Tears in Oklahoma,
yeah.
and tried to contact them and find out how they're doing. Never
Yeah.
responded, won't answer my calls, nothing.
Yeah. I've had a few like that too. I sometimes I wonder if it's not just because they want to go on from that part of their life. They don't want to remember it kind of thing. That's what I'm hoping. And then some of it is probably because they've reverted back.
Dana D had a question. I have a question. If someone is scratched while on a paranormal investigation, is that by a demon or can a human spirit scratch people? I always thought human spirit could. Thanks in advance.
Both can. Both
Yeah,
can do it.
both.
Yeah. And if it's demonic, if you have any holy oil with you, take and put it right on the scratch and within minutes it'll be completely gone.
Yeah, even I mean, if like a regular spirit, if that's all they know how to do and that's the energy they can to communicate with you, they are going to scratch you to let you know they're there.
Mhm. Yep, they can.
Where you're demonic, you're going to get it in threes.
And the demonic, they've got the superhuman strength. And that whereas a regular human spirit does not have that kind of strength. I mean, they can lift maybe 3 pounds tops, I would think, not much more than that. I mean, it would take so much energy for them to do that. um, the demonic, they can lift 500 pounds and throw it through the wall and never break a sweat. So yeah, there's a big difference that way. But yeah, they both can affect um, a physical scratch, something like that. They can do that. And bruising, they can cause bruises. um, if it's just a nasty human spirit, I mean, it can be almost kind of hard to tell at some point whether you're looking at something worse than that or not. um, because they can be so ugly if they want to be. If
Yep.
they were that way in life, then they're going to be that way in death.
And I look at it too. This is my point of view on it too. If they owned that house at one time, and you go and you just up and move into it, and they don't realize they're dead, and they still think they're living
Mhm.
in the house, and it's theirs, they're gonna get aggressive because you're like a burglar. You're trespassing to them.
Or if you try to move things around and start doing,
Yep. Remodel.
remodeling and all that, and they don't appreciate it. It's like, this is the way, I love my home, and then here you come in my home and now you're messing it up. So yeah, they can get aggressive that way too. You're right.
And my dad and I just did a lecture on Halloween for Rotary Club, and we were talking about that type of stuff with
Yeah.
your regular entities, your demonic stuff, and we were talking about yard selling and antique shopping,
Yep.
bringing that stuff into your home, and
Yeah. If you're going to bring something home from an antique shop or I mean, I after that doll thing with my sister, I mean, anything I bring home from a Goodwill or something like that, a thrift store of any kind, really, that kind of thing, I would definitely sage it before you bring it into the house. I, personally would use holy water, and bless it before I bring it into my house, because you just never know what's attached to these things. You don't know what the past has been or where it came from.
exactly.
So why not? Just save yourself some trouble.
Yep, that's what I tell people all the time. I told them, if you want to call me, I'll come and cleanse it for you free of
Yeah,
charge.
yeah. Cleanse it, bless it, and then it's yours.
Dana D says, I agree. I'm a solo paranormal investigator.
Cool, cool, very cool.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you gotta be careful when you're doing solos too, because if you are dealing with something darker and it decides to take you over, you have nobody there to back you up.
right, right. Yeah,
Or like with me, if my team can't go, my dad's there, and if I am investigating solo, I stay in camera view the whole time so he can
yeah.
watch me.
Right, right. Yeah, exactly. And if too, I mean, it makes sense, especially if you're going out like into graveyards and stuff like that at night or whatever. I mean, there's so many holes in the ground and stuff like that. I mean, you wrench your ankle or something and now you're stuck there because you got nobody to help you.
Right.
So just
Bishop,
be careful.
Bishop Frank said, Earthbound spirits are really stubborn and most are mean and cause a lot of grief. Yeah, they sure do.
Yep, yep. Though I have run into some that, just really didn't know they were dead or whatever. Um, they weren't that bad. But for the most part, you start messing with their house and stuff like that, they don't like it.
Nope.
They don't like it at all.
That's like my house is haunted. I've got 3 confirmed deaths in it, and, they don't bother me. They seem to like what I did to the house, so
That's
even though I
good.
keep some of it, but
Yeah. Yep. And some of that too, it can come from the land. It can come from, there's times where I'll walk into, an old house, or it doesn't even have to be an old house, just a particular place. And you can just feel the layers and layers of, upon layers of the different histories and stuff like that from the place. And it'll actually feel almost like you're walking into a wall.
yep.
It feels, stagnant and just like so heavy in that. And if you take and cleanse the place out and stuff like that, it'll remove a lot of that residual energy and it'll feel a lot lighter.
Yep, and a lot of people don't realize either they've got more power over it to take
Oh,
their
yeah.
house back, to reclaim their property.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Set down boundaries. Tell them, just tell them how it's going to be, that this is your place and that, and that, there's people that don't mind cohabitating with them. And you can say, look, I don't go to that end of the house or whatever much. You want that end of the house, I'll leave you alone. But you're
Yep,
not welcome in this end of the house. I mean, some of them will take stuff like that and
right.
do it. So, but there are some of them that are just trapped too, that just need help to go on.
Rachel Roberts asks, why do they stay earthbound?
Oh, there's a lot of different reasons why they can be earthbound. Number one, they may not know that they're dead. Number two, they have unfinished business. At least to them, they do, for whatever reason, and it can be a multitude of different things. I had a cemetery that my guides had told me we needed to go to, and there were a lot of veteran spirits there that were not going on, did not want to move on. And I couldn't understand why not. I said, are they trapped there? And my guide said, no. And I said, well, why are they still hanging there then? And I was told that they were dumped basically in a mass grave, wherever it was that they were killed, and they were never given an actual funeral. And so I went down there, and I have pictures, and I can post them so y'all could see them. But we went down there, and I had some military medals that I had. My dad was in the service. I brought those. I put them in. All I had was this is because I was so dumb. The only dish I could find as I was walking out the door was my dog's dish. It's got like little puppy dog paws and it's pink.
Mhm.
But it was a clean dish, and I had my hands full, so I just grabbed it so I could put the medals in it. Well, we get down there to the cemetery. Beautiful day, gorgeous day. And I get there, and there's like this, somebody has carved this most beautiful wooden cross. And the cross was about 5.5 feet tall. And I took that dog dish and with the medals in it, and I put it on top, the very top of the cross. And on the arms of it, we had communion. I did communion, and I did a funeral for these spirits. And you could feel the energy. I had my dad's flag there at the foot of the cross, and I did a real nice military funeral for them. And I told them at the end, as I was playing taps, I told them to please come up and take the medals, that they had more than earned it. And so while this was going on, I saluted as long as taps was on. When it was over, I picked up my camera, and I just took a few pictures from where I was standing. I just took pictures in it like a circle, and didn't think too much about it. Got home, and it was actually like a month later I got sidetracked before I could look at the pictures. And I looked at the picture of the dish on top of the cross, and I thought, what the heck is that? And the dish was literally glowing. There was a big orb, white orb. I mean, just bright white orb coming. It was inside the dish, and you could see the top of it was rounded out, but it was definitely, it's like, are you kidding me? And I didn't know if that's when I asked the Lord to bless the medals, or if that's when they had come to take medals. I wasn't sure. But really cool was the other thing I caught was beyond the cross, there was oh gosh, I'm so bad with distance. I'm going to say maybe 3, 4 car lengths away was a fence that went around the cemetery, and it was a wooden fence. And at that wooden fence was the most bright light being I have ever seen in my life. It looked like he was about maybe, I don't know, 6 foot tall, looked like he had robes on, and he was just bright, beaming white, yellow light. And it was just the coolest thing, one of the coolest things I've ever caught on camera.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, it was pretty neat. So,
Yeah, my cousin Dawn said when we moved into our house, our daughter was scared by an old lady sitting on her bed. I saw the woman standing in the hallway and spoke to her. I told her she had passed away and needed to enter into the light. Then
Mm.
she fizzled out, and we have not seen her since. Lots of people die, and their spirit doesn't know it has died.
Yes, and there too, as to her point, when she's told them to go to the light, some of them don't see the light. So some you actually have to manufacture the light for them so they can go. Some of them, that's the whole reason why they're there, because they know you have abilities. They're trying to communicate with you and they want to go, but they have no way to get to the light. So visualize that light for them and they can go through that light and go home that way.
Wow. Well, we hit our hour mark. I have another show on after me. Um, if people want to get a hold of you to book you for conventions or deliverance, how can they get a hold of you?
On Instagram or I'm on Facebook. Um, I've got several pages on Facebook. But that's probably the best way to get me is through Messenger there on Facebook. There's email you can get me at bishoprita.exorcist@gmail.com.
All right. If you want to hang out for a minute backstage, I'm going
Sure.
to close the show out. I thank everybody for joining me tonight. I thank you, Bishop Rita, for coming
Thank you
on
for
the
having
show,
me.
sharing your knowledge.
Thank you for having me.
Tune in next week, next Friday, same time, same channel. My guest next week is Jason McLeod. So we will see you all next week.